What's up, everyone? Welcome back again. I need to confess something about Will Fuller. As a Texans fan, I was really not on board with this pick when I first heard his name called last April, and in fact, I was actually really against it. I had higher grades on both Corey Coleman and Josh Doctson coming out of that draft class. Coleman was, of course, already off the board by the time the Texans got to pick. He went to the Browns. But I really thought Doctson would have been a better pick at the time based on how I viewed them both as prospects. And then I thought a little bit more about how Fuller's skill set works within the offense, and I listened to Bill O'Brien talk about how they were really prioritizing speed and deep ball ability over everything else when looking at a running mate for DeAndre Hopkins, and the pick started to make a lot more sense. And then I saw him play in the preseason, and it really started to make sense. Fuller immediately worked himself into a starting role during training camp, which basically never happens in a Bill O'Brien offense due to its complexity. And even on the limited snaps with the first team in those preseason games that he got, they were taking a lot of deep shots to him downfield. Now, O'Brien said after Fuller was drafted that he envisions this offense having 5 different receivers, all with different skill sets, that can be used to exploit certain matchups from week to week depending on whatever the opposing defense has trouble with. So teams with smaller, quicker corners like you see in San Diego would naturally be a great matchup for a big, physical jump ball receiver like DeAndre Hopkins, while teams with bigger, slower press corners that tend to do well against Hopkins, they'd be a great matchup for Fuller because he could simply run away from them downfield and make stuff happen with the deep ball. On top of that, you got a great utility player and yards after catch threat in Braxton Miller in the slot, as well as another big body jump ball receiver in Jalen Strong that'll see usage in the red zone. They all do different things well, which means on any given week they could all be featured heavily in the game plan. Hopkins, of course, is the lead dog of that group, and he'll get his touches regardless of matchup. But Fuller brings something to the table that Hopkins doesn't, and that is fear. He makes corners panic. Hell, he makes safeties panic too. He makes defenses fear the threat of the deep ball, and that's the first time I've seen that from the Texans offense in maybe ever. And that's what you saw in the preseason. Every time defenses left Fuller one-on-one, and I mean every time they left him alone, Brock Osweiler seemed to have license to just chuck it deep and make them pay for it. It was almost automatic. Will Fuller's one-on-one, he's getting the ball, that's it. So by the end of preseason, not only was I on board with this pick after seeing how he was used, but I was really excited to watch him play. I was excited to be wrong. And then week 1 came and he had himself a day. 107 yards, a team record for a rookie in his debut, by the way. Andre Johnson and DeAndre Hopkins did not do that. And a touchdown reception as well. Also the first time a rookie had ever done that in a Texans uniform on their debut. He was brilliant. And what was amazing about it is that his debut could have been even better than that. First example, end of the first quarter, Chicago's stacking the box against Lamar Miller, and they're cheating their single high safety towards DeAndre Hopkins, which is what everybody kind of expected them to do. Fuller's on an island out there, so Brock Osweiler's automatically going to look his way because he likes that matchup. Now, unfortunately, Brock is a little late on his throw, and he doesn't quite get it far enough down the field, so Fuller has to slow up near the front of the end zone, and that lets the corner, Jacoby Glenn, back into the play to break it up. But Fuller had him. He had Glenn dead to rights here. He was lined up 9 yards off of Fuller on the snap, and like I said in my last video on Marcus Peters, you're not lining up that far off unless you absolutely do not want to get beat on the deep ball. And Fuller still got a step on him by the time he got to the end zone. That's how damn fast he is. He ate up a 9-yard cushion and still got over the top of it. And a big reason why Fuller did get that step on Glenn was his great stem on the route. Look at how he presses Glenn to the outside of the numbers as he starts to flip his hips and run with the route. Fuller wants to track the ball to the middle of the field on this skinny post, so by widening the corner, he's giving himself more space to get to that spot uncontested. He's forcing Glenn to not only keep up with him vertically, but now also horizontally because he has positioned himself to be leveraged inside of Glenn on, for our purposes, an inside breaking route. If you give yourself that leverage, you automatically have the advantage. So Glenn now has to play catch up and get back into the middle of the field from all the way outside the numbers while also trying to get over the top of the route vertically and break it up. Against a receiver that runs in the high 4.2s and low 4.3s like Fuller, asking a corner to do that is basically suicide. This kind of situation is why bracket coverage exists, so that when a corner gets widened that far outside on the route stem and the receiver bends it back inside, he's got a safety sitting right there to help. Bracket coverage eliminates the leverage advantage for a receiver on these kinds of routes. But of course, dedicating that much attention to one guy while DeAndre Hopkins is already lurking on the other side of the field, that's not an easy pill to swallow for a defensive coordinator. And that's what makes Fuller so dangerous. If you leave him one-on-one while trying to limit the damage Hopkins can do, Fuller will just hit you even harder by putting your corners into an impossible no-win situation just like this one. It's unfortunate for the Texans that this wasn't a touchdown, but it's a great example of what Fuller is capable of because of his speed. Later in the half, about 2 minutes to go in the second quarter, Houston was actually trailing here, and they're looking for a spark to start their drive. Chicago leaves Fuller one-on-one outside yet again, and he torches him. Osweiler puts a throw right on the money for a surefire 83-yard, one-play touchdown drive, and Fuller drops it. Now, the drops were a concern in college. It was easily his biggest knock, and why I graded both Coleman and Doxson higher than Fuller coming out. And unfortunately for him, that issue reared its ugly head for him again on this play. He would end up making up for it later, but this one hurt. It really hurt. The positive of this play, though, is that he immediately got over the top of an 8-yard cushion without even breaking the sweat. His acceleration to top speed is jaw-dropping, and he's the only receiver I've ever seen in a Texans uniform that literally makes off coverage completely irrelevant. The Bears had no corners that could keep up with him. None. If these last two plays I showed you were catches, we're looking at over 200 yards and 3 touchdowns on the day. And these weren't even all the near misses. Later in the game, he showed great physicality and hand usage to break free from press coverage and get over the top of Tracy Porter for another would-be touchdown, but Osweiler put the ball just out of reach with an overthrow. Now, unfortunately, that's just kind of what Fuller is right now for this offense. He's electric, and he's exciting, and he has the tools to be unbelievably dominant. But those missed opportunities are still going to happen from time to time because that's just the nature of the deep ball in the NFL. Sometimes they hit, and sometimes they don't. And you just gotta hope that you have a good enough receiver out there that can make the hits count. Fuller's a bit like DeSean Jackson in that way. And to quote a fellow writer of mine at Battle Red Blog, he's the kind of receiver that'll have 1 or 2 plays a week that make you want to punch yourself in the dick. But even through all of that, he'll still end up winning you the game. That sounds a lot like DeSean Jackson to me at least, and of course that's exactly how Fuller's first game played out against Chicago last week. Whether it was turning a curl against off coverage into a big play from yards after catch, or practically digging a screen pass out of the dirt and then taking it all the way to the house, the Texans were doing whatever they could to get Fuller the ball. They threw it to him deep, they threw it to him short, it didn't matter. They knew the Bears couldn't cover him, and they couldn't catch him in space, so the more opportunities he had with the ball, the better. On this double move that Fuller caught for another huge gain down the sideline, Brock Osweiler said after the game that they were waiting for that look all day long on 3rd and short and finally got it here. They wanted to get Fuller in a press look one-on-one where he could fake the hitch at the sticks and then take off down the sideline on the double move. The corner would obviously have to respect the hitch and break on it because it's 3rd down, and with Fuller's speed, that's all it takes to get him loose. Once you commit to that hitch, even if it's only for a couple of steps, he is gone. You've got no shot to catch him, especially with how quickly he can hit the gas. The Texans wanted this look for him, and when they got it, Osweiler made the Bears regret giving it to him. I never thought I would see DeAndre Hopkins be an afterthought in the game plan, but that's kind of what it looked like to me in week 1. And that really speaks to how highly they think of Fuller in Houston. They made him literally the focal point of their entire passing attack in his first ever game, despite sharing the field with one of the 5 best wide receivers on the planet. That doesn't happen unless they think you're special. And you know what? After this game, I'm kind of starting to agree with him. I think this dude might be special. So consider this my apology to Will Fuller. I was completely, utterly wrong about how he would fit on this team. The drops still kind of suck, obviously, and in a vacuum, I still do think that both Corey Coleman and Josh Doxson deserve to be graded higher as prospects. But as far as who I want to be wearing a Texans uniform for the next 10 years, I wouldn't take anyone in this rookie class of receivers over Fuller right now. Anyone. He is perfect for this team and what they want to accomplish across from DeAndre Hopkins. He's already incredibly dangerous as a deep threat and as a yards after catch threat, and by mid-season when he and Osweiler really start clicking and getting on the same page with these deep balls, the results could be cataclysmic for opposing defenses. Between him and Hopkins, I'm talking scorched earth disaster, and I can't wait to watch it. Alright, that's all I got for now. I really hope you guys enjoyed watching this episode as much as I enjoyed making it. If you'd like to support the channel and help me get one step closer to being able to make these videos full time, you can do so over on my Patreon page. Any donation, big or small, is so appreciated. I really couldn't do this without you guys, and thank you again to everyone who has already subscribed and donated so far. I am truly grateful to all of you. Next week's video, I haven't really figured out who I'm going to look at yet. I kind of want to see how these Week 2 games play out first, and then I'll see at that point if anyone has a performance that really stands out. So until then, later.